So let's talk about Republican governors and 2016 hopefuls and their positions on Obamacare. According to Reuters, quote, Scott Walker has called the law an abysmal failure. So as you can tell, he has a very nuanced take on this. Rick Perry has blasted it as, quote, an abomination. Again, these people are very moderate, and they're giving both sides of it here. It's not like they're super one-sided and they just come up with the most negative words possible. Chris Christie called it a failure. Bobby Jindal told a gathering of conservative activists in February that, quote, we must repeal every single word of Obamacare. So, if you can't tell, they have nothing but disdain for this law, and they're all on the record that the law shouldn't exist. They've slammed it time after time. Well, now we have some further details on this. Quote, Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, Chris Christie of New Jersey, Bobby Jindal of Louisiana, and former Texas Governor Rick Perry, all staunch opponents of Obamacare, have collectively applied for and won at least $352 million through grant programs set up by the law. Federal records show. So all the talk that they're doing, this law is the worst law ever passed in American history. It's an abysmal failure. It's an abomination. This law raped my grandmother. I can't take it. It's so horrible. Turns out that behind closed doors, they're like, yeah, about that whole thing I said about not liking Obamacare, how much money can it give me? Walker's administration has accepted at least $69 million through the Affordable Care Act grant programs. Bobby Jindal's administration has accepted $60 million in Obamacare grants. Perry took $148 million. And in New Jersey, Chris Christie accepted the Medicaid expansion. He said on the grounds that it will help low-income residents in hospitals and has secured at least $75 million in grant money. So, at the same time, Chris Christie's the biggest hypocrite, because at the same time he's slamming it, and he's like, oh, this is the worst law ever, it's terrible, I hate it. Anyway, I'll accept, like, half of it. Give me the Medicaid expansion, give me the grant money, and give me some other stuff here on the side. And the only part that I'm not going to abide by is I will not set up a state exchange. Look, the whole point of this story here is not only to highlight that these guys are hypocrites, but it's also to point out that what they're doing is they're playing partisan political games. And it's obvious that that's what they're doing. Because on the merits of this law, comparing it to what the system was like beforehand when there was no reform whatsoever, there is no debate. There is no two sides to that. There is no, what's your opinion? Hey, I'll give my opinion, and they're different. No, it is a stone-cold fact that the way the system functions now after Obamacare is significantly better than it did before Obamacare. Now, that's not saying it's perfect now. It's far from perfect. We need single-payer to get as close to perfect as we could possibly get. But it certainly is better than 45,000 people dying every year because they don't have access to basic health care. It's certainly better than 47 million people uninsured. It's certainly better than pre-existing conditions running wild and you have health insurance companies dropping people left and right when they need care the most. It's certainly better than a system where kids are kicked off their parents' rolls at the age of 21. Now they could stay on until the age of 26. It's certainly a better system than when insurance companies used to spend like 50% of their money on paperwork and overhead and only 50% on actual care. Now, according to the law, at least 80% has to be on actual care. So it's not an open question as to whether or not Obamacare is better than the previous system. It is absolutely, positively, 100% true and verifiable and demonstrable to show that Obamacare is better than the previous system. And even though these guys come out there and talk about how it's evil and it's horrible and it's the worst law ever, they really know behind closed doors, their advisors tell them, and the insurance companies tell them, you better heal, bitch. You better accept at least some of the aspects of Obamacare because it's actually better for everybody.